Welcome to Empowered Living. I'm Ann Shu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empowered Living, a podcast where we explore the habits and conversations that help us build more intentional, resilient lives. I'm your host, Ann Shu, and today we're talking about what it really means to create a life on your own terms. I'm joined by Angela Masciulli, confidence coach, podcast host, and entrepreneur. Angela turned her own season of burnout into a catalyst for joy, purpose, and intentional living. In this conversation, Angela and I talk about why happiness doesn't just happen and how to intentionally cultivate it. Angela shares the hidden cost of perfectionism and people-pleasing, and how moms can rediscover their identity outside of parenthood without guilt. We also talk about the simple practices that you can use to reconnect with yourself and uncover what truly lights you up. Whether you're a parent, entrepreneur, or simply seeking a more aligned way to live, this episode offers encouragement and practical steps to design a life that's both sustainable and deeply fulfilling. Let's dive in. Angela, so great to have you on today. So let's just dive in. Let's start with your story about how you went from burnout to really living this intentional life and now helping others be intentional about their motherhood, their entrepreneurship.
Right. Yeah. Long story short, in 2019, a series of events happened where I just felt like there has to be more than this. Like I had gotten the degrees and I had the husband and the house and the kids, and there was still something missing. And what was it? And I wanted to be in the position of creating my own opportunities and not waiting for other people to give them to me. So I had this crazy idea to start a travel business, and I did that. And then other moms around me thought that was so audacious. Like, who was I to step away from my longtime legal career and start a travel business near the pandemic to and so I thought, like, why not? I needed to focus on having more fun in my life and doing more things that were happy to me and also creating memories with my family. And I had people around me. I was a military spouse for more than 10 years, and I had all of this travel knowledge. And people had been telling me, you got to do this, because I was the go to person all the time. And so I stepped into that. And then moms around me started going, oh, I would never do what I want to do. I would, you know. And so I started having that conversation. And I really started realizing how much I could create the life that I wanted once I was intentional about it and I curated it and didn't expect it to just happen to me. I didn't expect happiness to happen to me. I didn't expect success or opportunity to just knock on my door. And so then other moms around me started seeing this and they're like, what is going on? And so I was part of this podcasting co-op, and I was thinking about starting a travel business podcast, but then I also wanted to have this conversation with other moms about why we don't feel like we can pursue our dreams and do what makes us happy and think that we're not good enough to be an entrepreneur while we're bringing people into this world and helping run families. And so we're almost at 200 episodes, several years later. And I didn't expect anybody to want to listen to one episode, but now we're heard in, over 80 countries worldwide. And so I really just stepped into creating the life that I wanted and try to help be a mirror for other people to do the same.
Beautiful. So let's go back to something you said because it caught my attention. You said that you didn't just sit around and wait for the happiness to come. I'm curious if that was a mindset that you had always had, or was that something that you developed along the way through personal development work and your own journey? Or was it just how you were raised, how you were born?
Yeah. Well, as you will probably recognize in your entrepreneurial journey, you can't hide anything. Like all of your skeletons will come out of the closet. And one of the things that I come to realize is that I had a very traumatic childhood. And it really taught me to play small. It really taught me to not think I was worthy. So I realized that maybe rejection or not getting the opportunities I wanted felt like some kind of commentary on my self-worth, but I wasn't creating what I wanted. And so I really think that many people, I thought happiness happened to you. Like when you took a trip with your family, or you got the promotion, or you got what it is, some outside source of validation to make you feel worthy. And then suddenly, through that personal development and therapy, I realized that I had to curate and create the life that was full of happiness and the things that actually made me happy.
So, what advice would you give the listener who might be in a place where they're starting to notice that they have that mindset of, oh, it's going to happen in the future? I don't, even if I'm not intentional, like it's almost like this wishful thinking that it's just going to happen and I don't have to do
Yeah.
anything to make it happen.
Right. And I think a lot of people I talk to think that it happens to other people and not them. Like that's for somebody else.
Yeah.
A happy relationship, a happy family, happy kids, a happy life. That's something that happens to somebody else because it just doesn't happen to me. So, I guess the one thing I would say is that it's there for everybody. There is an abundance of happiness out there for everyone. It's what we choose to have in our lives. And we really do get to choose how we feel. Most of the time, if we're in grief or we have tragic things that go on, I'm not talking about benevolent awareness
Right.
is, not beating ourselves up also about what we're aware of, like how we behave and how we react. But it's really, I love how you talk about it's like really the relationships that we want to have, we have to be that example first.
The idea of what was the word you used around happiness?
Benevolent
Yeah, the
awareness.
happiness, fake happiness, what
Yes.
toxic happiness.
Yeah,
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that. And is specifically in relation to expanding our own awareness, right?
right.
What are some signs that somebody might be in a state of toxic?
I think if you're really concerned how others perceive you, that can be a good sign. If you're overly conscious and care how others perceive you and you have to put on the happy face and the perfect mom and perfect wife and perfect coworker face, that is a really big sign, or the perfect daughter or the perfect, because, perfectionism is just such a sign of trauma. It's a trauma response. And I think that if that that feeling that I had, that I think so many people do who pursue things that really seek the outward attention and the outward gold star
Mhm.
are really those signs of people who are feeling empty inside. If you're not feeling fulfilled in what you're doing and you're waiting for it to come, then that's really a sign that you need to evaluate what it is that you really want, because we so often subconsciously cosign other people's expectations, other people's ideas of what we should be and how we should act and what's our idea of success, our idea of happiness. We're constantly co-signing all of those things. And at some point in life, if you're not feeling fulfilled, if you are not feeling happy, if you don't feel like that's something that is part of your life, I would really encourage anybody to reevaluate your beliefs and your values.
So let's say somebody does have that awareness that they
Mhm.
are acting out of this trauma response. They're living out somebody else's dream, the idea of what a perfect daughter or a perfect employee or a perfect parent looks like. What if you're saying, reevaluate your values, your beliefs? What's
Mhm.
first tangible step after that? What do you do then? How do
Yeah.
you shift away from that when your entire life has probably been wrapped around this identity?
Yeah, that's so hard, and I have, like, this whole, like, exercise I walk clients through because I had a one of my first guests who came on the podcast who was, like, a minor celebrity. I was just like, "What did I do to deserve to have you on the podcast?" And she was like after the interview, she's like, "Angela, you need to own this." And I was like, "Okay." Assignment accepted. And so I became a certified confidence coach because I wanted to understand why I had received this. I had accomplished some success with my podcast, but then somebody came on my podcast and I didn't feel worthy of interviewing them.
Mm,
And so I mean, beyond those initial steps, I will also say it's an ongoing journey. When we all have new levels, we have new devils. It is such an ongoing thing. But if somebody is in that situation where they're just really like, okay, I don't know if any of my thoughts or values or beliefs are my own, it's really time to get in touch with yourself, which I really think is lack of confidence, which is a disconnect with ourselves, and really start to get in touch with what is important to you.
mm.
I think so many people don't even realize that and can't answer that question. It's constantly picking up somebody else's yardstick, and you have to put the yardstick of everybody else down.
That's so hard.
It is hard, I know, but it's so funny. I love that yardstick analogy because it's like when I'm in a situation where I have somebody who's trying to hand me metaphorically their yardstick, I just visualize putting it down.
Okay, so in your work supporting people who are both parents and entrepreneurs, what are some of the most common struggles that you see? What are the common themes that you see?
Yeah. I think one of the ones that keeps popping up lately is especially moms having a hard time seeing themselves as something other than a mom,
Mm,
and not feeling guilty about that. And not realizing that developing ourselves and pursuing our passions actually makes us a better parent. It doesn't detract from parenthood or motherhood. And it's like my oldest just graduated high school, and, you hear, "Oh, I'll wait until they go away to college to start the podcast or start the business or whatnot." And I can't imagine having not started that and how empty I would feel right now. And so we have to continue to nurture ourselves as individuals, as partners, as realize what our gifts are and really pursue those, because that also is an example for our children. Most importantly, as a mother, that's an example to your child.
but how does someone whose entire identity is wrapped up in a mom that shift? How do you start? Like, where do you even start? Like, let's say you want to. How do you navigate that?
In my motherhood journey, where I was working so much, I had to step back and I had an identity crisis. And I was just like,
Mm,
who am I if I am not doing this job? And at that point, it was you have to begin to find some comfort in the silence. You have to start listening and stop doing. And that's something I tell clients all the time. It's the stop the seeking and start the knowing and just being. And that's something we don't focus on enough in our hustle culture where we have, constant distraction. And so I think that that's a really important place to start, and doing things like just getting out in nature, just creating that quiet space in your calendar to figure out what it is that really lights you up. And if you don't know what that is, you need to start trying it. I've
Mm.
had guests who are in roller derbies or love puzzles or just, I mean, to me, it's just like that quiet space is so important, especially when we have kids, in addition to all of the distractions we have in our lives. So I think just finding quiet time is one of the most important places to start. And then starting that list of like, what's important to you? What makes you happy?
What other questions should they be thinking about if they find some quiet time?
Yeah. I mean, for me, just that starting to think about those times when you were happiest in your life. And I remember I was on an island in the Bahamas, and I hadn't ridden a bicycle in, like, I couldn't even remember how long, and our family rented bikes, and I was like, "This is the most fun thing I have done in so long." And so, revisiting things that you did in your childhood that you really love to do are amazing. This is another hack that you can also try that I think is really ingenious. Whatever is your dominant hand, start to write things out in your non dominant hand. And that has this really interesting effect of taking you out of your comfort zone and just starting to, I forget the author who included this in her book, but she emphasizes play, which I think is also very important.
In fact, I used to practice writing with my opposite hand during class when I was in school
Uh-huh.
just to stay awake.
But yeah, I mean, doing things like that that seem so simple or childlike, yeah, can be really powerful.
What does play look like for grown-ups?
What does play look like for grown-ups? Well, for me, I live very close to Walt Disney World, and we are there quite often every month.
Wow.
So, and I know people who think that that's really silly. I mean, I'm not wearing Mickey ears and doing the whole Disney adult thing, but I love being somewhere that I can just go on a roller coaster and just have the best time and realize that that's really important for me to go home and do more work. And we travel a lot. For me, that's what a lot of play looks like. But I think making sure you're doing those things that get you outside, I think is really important.
So, in your coaching practice, it seems like you take a very holistic approach to the person. You're not just focused on helping them in the business or just helping them as parents, but you also bring in the confidence coaching and your Reiki practice. So,
Mhm.
tell us about why that is all so important and how you have found a niche to be able to incorporate all of that into your practice.
Yeah, I think that that's such a great point. We are not beings in a vacuum. We are not just entrepreneurs. We're not just parents. We are multifaceted, complex humans, especially as women and as mothers. And so I tried so much in my early entrepreneur days that was here, just try this strategy and cookie cutter, and you can do it and you'll have the success. And I was so frustrated why it didn't work for me. And because people are so individual, we're so unique. And so I really dislike that about the coaching space where or professional development or business strategists who don't take into account, like, one of the foundational things I think we need to do as entrepreneurs is really truly understand who we are. And for me, that's taken me down the rabbit hole of, reading my astrological birth chart. And it's taken me down the rabbit hole of, so many different things that help you learn, who you are and what your personality type is and all of those things. And so once I realized that, I started focusing on how my spiritual gifts that I've always had, and I've kept them very hidden and not realized how much I use them to kind of know what clients need before they even tell me. And things like that. And really connecting with others that I work with, my sales went up 1,000%. And my happiness went up, it's intangible. You can't measure that, right? And that's the really important part. And so I realized that that is what is lacking. I see moms who is like, I've tried this and I did this lunch and it didn't work and I don't understand it. I asked them, well, how's your home life? Oh, and it's like, holistically, we have to look at the whole picture. How are you taking care of yourself? How's your relationship with your children? You know, how are you feeling energetically? What is your sense of self worth? What is your confidence? Let's go back to your childhood. What's there that's hanging you up? What are some of the experiences? What are the stories you're telling yourself? And I found that once you deal with that, then you can start putting those other strategies in place that bring you the success on your terms, not someone else's terms.
That's so good. So, this idea of success on our own terms, I feel like it is such a simple concept, but so many people struggle with it. And I think it ties back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode. But why do you think it's such a big problem? Like, why do you think we struggle with this? I mean, it's such a simple concept. And when people hear it, they're like, yeah, of course I want success on my own terms. But why is it so hard to actually live out when I would, you know, I would guess if we were to ask anybody, they would definitely agree and wholeheartedly say, yeah, that's what I want. But to
Yeah.
actually execute it day in and day out is hard. And I would even take it one step further and say, I think a lot of people might be in denial that they are living that way.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially as, you have to be able to realize that most people are kind of running on a program. You have to have expanded your consciousness. And most people are afraid to do that because that program that they've been given, those yardsticks by which they have either consciously or subconsciously been given or taken to measure what is a quote unquote good life, to live without that is very scary. To live without that outside validation of their parents or society is very hard. I see it with my daughter's generation. The paradigm is changing.
Mhm.
And it's having to as society evolves with AI. It started with COVID. We are changing the way that we work, what's acceptable. I mean, on camera, I used to apologize at meetings if somebody heard my child or the cat jumped in the camera or whatnot. And now that's like, okay, we realize people are other than just like machines working at a business. We're real people.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very scary. Our brains are designed to protect us
Mm.
and to have that validation to be part of the tribe. And I think that, we're slowly beginning to realize that the level of unhappiness that some people experience because they're continuing to live their life according to some other script than what would really make them happy is starting to fall away. It's just not as sustainable.
In your work coaching people specifically in their confidence, what do you see as some of the biggest factors that impact people's confidence negatively?
Who they really are. And I think that that is the root of all lack of confidence, but also the stories we tell ourselves. We don't realize, Bobby said something mean to us when we were in fifth grade, and therefore it just lives free rent in our mind for the rest of our lives until we learn to go, no, that's actually not true. So we start with some affirmations and some start to rewire their brains when it comes to the stories that we tell ourselves about what we're capable of and you know how we are actually really meant to receive all of the goodness that we even desire. And that's something that's really difficult as well, especially as women. We're serving others so much, and that is a wonderful thing. I love cooking for my family and doing for my family, but we also have to realize we have to do for ourselves. And so I think that too, receiving for ourselves is a really big part of building your confidence and realizing, okay, I take care of myself and I graciously accept things into my life, even something like a compliment about your hair or your outfit can be really hard for somebody to receive.
So, for someone who maybe is raising a family, starting to think about entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
not quite there yet, but has some hopes, some dreams, some ideas, how do you recommend they get started? How do they find the time, the energy, the space to do
Yeah.
some of that work that required to start a new venture?
Mhm. I think one of the first things that I do is, I help moms figure out what it is that they wanna do, but I also help them figure out, like, what is their capacity? And that's such a powerful word. You can do so much, but you have to realize in the season that you're in, what is truly your capacity. And, I had somebody I was working with who wanted to start a balloon business. She was very talented, but she had a 3-year-old toddler. And we talked about the fact that this was going to mean that she was going to have to be committed to going to certain places for her business. And I'm like, "Is that something you're really gonna be able to do?" And, you know, you can do whatever you want, you can have a business, but you have to make sure that it fits your lifestyle and your business is not running you. So that's and then I think the most fundamental piece of entrepreneurship is understanding who you are. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do you work well? How do you not work well? And realizing you're going to have to create some boundaries to also keep some peace in your life. Boundaries, getting to know who you are, realizing that you need to understand your capacity and really what your goals are too. Like, what do you really want to achieve?
How does somebody go about figuring that out? What do I really want? Because you've said it so many times on our call, like
Mhm.
what you really want. We at Empowered Journey, we help clients try to get that answered. But
Yeah.
for you and the work that you're doing, how do
Mhm.
you recommend people try to get there? Because that feels very big and heavy and daunting.
Mhm.
You don't have the right structure and the tools and the process to get to that answer.
But I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier is getting getting in touch with make what makes you happy.
Mm,
What lights you up? And we so often ignore that. And I think it was years ago, Amy Porterfield was talking about how she would be in a moment and she would be like, I am happy. Like, I think we overlook it. We're so like desensitized to it. We're on to the next thing.
yeah.
And so just realizing my kids make fun of me all the time about the silliest things that make me happy that I make a big deal out of, but it's in pursuit of knowing. Like, it's really important to know what makes you happy and what you want. And, here's that other thing, especially as parents, that is going to change. You might want the big house and the fancy car and realize, you know what? I really, in this season of my life, don't want to work the hours it takes to get that. So I'm happy with the used car that's got some stains in the floor. And,
Yeah.
because that means I get a couple of hours extra sleep at night.
Right.
You know? So what you want will also evolve as you evolve and your family evolves.
When you work with clients, the what do you want? Is it a sentence? Is it a narrative? Are you having them, I don't know, draw out a picture? Are they doing a
Yeah.
vision board?
I have some exercises that ask them various questions about the times in their childhood that they remember that they were the happiest. Like, what is an accomplishment that they remember that really truly they felt accomplished and proud of themselves? And then we also go through things that like their career accomplishments and ask them about things that they do well. And here's the trick. You often have to ask other people
Mm,
because we're so desensitized to what we do well. We take it for granted. It's when it's innate to us, we don't even think like that's special, but it is. And so I think it is a process to uncover what you want because so many times we don't realize that what we think we want is, somebody else's highlight reel. And the reality of that is is not what we thought.
Let's talk a little bit about limiting beliefs. What suggestions do you have on helping people identify their limiting beliefs?
Yeah, and this is where the awareness piece comes in, and it's so important. I do have some exercises that I walk through clients through because they're some major kind of ways that we can be self-critical.
Mm,
But overall, I think we all naturally kind of have this scarcity default button that we press a lot, whether it's we don't have enough time,
mm.
we don't have enough energy, we don't have enough money, we don't have fill in the blank. Um, I think it's really important to learn how to catch yourself in those moments where you're like, I can't do that. Well, why are you limiting yourself? Why are you saying you can't? Why are you feeling overwhelmed? Why I love that whole, like, if you keep working yourself backwards and asking yourself why, that can be really helpful in helping you get to the root of what it is that you really believe. And, so much of what we think we believe is just, thoughts and ideas that we've just been regurgitating our whole life because of family or friends or whatnot. And so realizing what you think truly limits you is really important to just be aware and catch yourself when you can, what it is you think is keeping you from accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot. I'm curious if you have any parting tips, tricks, wisdom that you want to share with the mompreneurs that are listening, maybe future mompreneurs.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is, we talked about the awareness and being aware of our participation in the life that we're experiencing. Remembering that we're way more powerful than we think we are. And then two, realizing that, you know, the life that we desire it for a reason and it is there for you. But you have to be willing to do the work and put in the it can take years. It may not be quick. We just moved into what I think is our dream home, and we've been working towards it for years. And it's almost like I can't believe it happened, but it did. And it just feels like a dream. But you have to realize that it's not going to happen quickly. Most likely, it's going to take a lot of work. And you just have to be, not only consistent, but just very tenacious in the pursuit of what it is that you want to create in your life, whatever that is, and realize your role in that creation.
Fight for that life.
You do. You really do. If that means cutting people out of your life or not watching Netflix and working your project is, and we don't have to completely throw out the baby with the bathwater. You don't have to quit your day job to become an entrepreneur and start your side hustle that may become one day your 9 to 5. So it takes time.
Okay, so if people have been listening, they want to get in touch with you, they want to follow you, learn more about your work, what's the best way for them to get in?
Yeah, they can reach out to me at mombusinesscoach.com because my last name is super complicated to spell. So, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm starting a mom entrepreneur monthly support group where we could just come together. There is like no pressure. You don't even have to say anything.
Love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an honor to have you on the show. Thanks, Angela. Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them. Because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.